Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So today is a day to get some work done in the garden. I actually wanted to do this weeks ago because I had planned originally on trying to do a fall garden this year, fall/winter. But I'm so behind on things. I honestly don't know if I will do one this year. If I do, it'll be minimal. But I do need to do a big clean out. That is for sure. And so that is what I'm doing today, or what I'm about to get started doing. It's warm and toasty at the moment, but you know what? That's all right. It needs to get done. There are still some things producing. I'm still getting peppers. There's lots of herbs. You know, I won't cut those down. I'll leave those be and things like that. But a lot of the stuff is going to get ripped out today. You know, it's been a rough month, which is why I'm kind of behind on things. You know, a month ago I was attacked by that German Shepherd that I had been trying to help, which put me on. That week was the week that I was going to actually work on the garden, but I couldn't do anything because my hand was in very bad shape at the time. And then that same day, earlier that day, I found out that my dog, Ute, was dying of lymphoma. This past week has been rough. He passed away on Friday. You know, I had hoped to be able to have him, when the time came, done at home. My vet actually did do that if they have another vet on staff on the day that it happens, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. However, I did remember that I had tranquilizers for Duke, our other big dog, our old dog, who, Willow's sunglasses. Our big dog, who is the sweetest teddy bear at home, but Cujo at the vet. And so I was able to give Ute the tranquilizers that made him basically completely out of it and groggy during the whole thing. He had been gaining weight from the steroids, but the last 3 days he was rapidly dropping weight. He'd gotten very weak. Pretty much all he was doing was sleeping anyways. And so, you know, by giving him the tranquilizers, he was just completely out of it, and slept, you know, just laid there in the truck on the way there. Got him there. We had to carry him in and put him on the table, and he just laid there and kind of slept while I pet him, and that was pretty much it. So he wasn't really aware of anything, which is best case scenario, because he was always so afraid of going to the vet, and you know, that was why I had hoped to have done it at home. So I had several questions about these peppers right here. As you can see, I'm still getting more and more of them. These are called Brazilian starfish peppers. Very pretty little flower shaped peppers. Spice wise, they're about the same as a cayenne pepper. And so my use for these has always been just to dry them up and grind them up as my own seasoning. But they're prolific. Once the plant gets going, they seem to take a little bit longer than other peppers, but man, once they start, you've got peppers galore. They are prolific producers. And I've already done several harvests, big harvests off of these pepper plants. And as you can see, I've got them coming in still. But my big thing is going to be like cleaning off all the dead stuff, dead flowers, dead beans. You can see my big old wall of NT half-runner beans here is pretty much toast. The trellises, the big arches over there, I'll probably still leave a lot of that on there for the time being. I've got Chinese noodle beans here. I've got the painted ladies over there. I'll just let them continue to produce as much as they can, generally just for seed saving. Herbs wise, now here you can see my gigantic jungle of the Tulsi basil. This is also called holy basil or sacred basil. It is a wonderful medicinal herb. You can also see it is just covered with bees. There are bees everywhere. They love this stuff. And y'all, if you have never grown Tulsi basil, you ought to, because it smells so so good. And look at this. Look at all these pollinators. Look at the happy bees. I wish my garden had looked like this all year, because normally this is what I see. But early on it was kind of rough this year. I can actually hear the humming. I don't know that y'all will be able to hear that, but this is usually what comfrey does for my garden first thing in the spring. But you can see, like, this was the dill, and you know, I've just got a great big old mess in here. This is that cardinal basil, which makes the neatest flowers. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? And I hope you can see, the sun is super, super bright, so I'm afraid it's going to kind of blow out the color. But these are so cool. You know, I do a lot of herb harvesting, and then towards the end of the summer, I just let it all go to flower. Now, the Tulsi basil, of course, will self-seed, and it'll just come back again in the same spot. And a lot of times the other basils will as well, like the Genovese basil. I don't know that I've ever had the cardinal basil come back, but I've only grown it a couple times. There you can see I've still got tomatoes happening. These were just suckers that I just got to a point where I just stopped pruning everything and I just let it go. And I would have suckers take off and basically make new plants, and they're still producing tomatoes. There's like green tomatoes all over the place in here. Oh, and I just saw a great big old cucumber that got missed, because I am still getting some random cucumbers. That one's pretty yellow, so the chickens will love that one. But yeah. But it is time to do some cleanup and get to it. So I actually got Ute back in 2017. He was a puppy, and I surprised Mr. Smith with him because I volunteered at the county animal shelter there in Alabama where we used to live. And I would take photos and make videos of all of the animals who were available for adoption. And especially doing the videos helped people see the personalities of the animals, and it significantly helped the adoption rates for them. And I also took photos, and one day I was editing these photos of the animals, and Mr. Smith walked by my computer while I was editing a photo of Ute. And when he saw it, he instantly fell in love with Ute's eyes, and he's like, I have to have that dog. Well, now, he said he didn't mean it, but I kind of think he did. Because at the time, we did already have 3 dogs. But I went the next day to the shelter, and I surprised Mr. Smith when he came home from work that day.
Oh, jeez. Where is he?
Backyard.
Oh, jeez.
I left him.
Yep.
Go, you little rat. Come on, guys. Go. 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 Hi. How are you?
Now, when we first got Ute, we actually thought he was possibly Catahoula leopard dog mix because of his eyes. He has what are called cracked glass or agate eyes, and you know, they were split half and half. One eye was split vertically, and the other eye was split horizontally, which from a distance made him look cross-eyed, which is kind of funny. But he was absolutely the best dog. He was so sweet, so obedient, loved everybody. And, you know, like I said, we thought he was Catahoula at first, but then it didn't take long for me to suspect that wasn't accurate. But ultimately, we think he was a husky mix, and probably a little bit of pit bull, because he didn't have the long coat of a husky, but he sure had the thick undercoat. And his fur was the softest fur you had ever felt on a dog. His whole life. He was softer than a puppy. It was amazing. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm just clearing out my tomato tunnel. I'm just cutting out the plant. This will all get composted. And then the buckets, I'm just taking the soil that's in here. I'll dump this into one of my big old tubs. I'll let it kind of loosen up, soften up, pull out the wad of roots, the thick stuff, and then I'll reuse the soil. Just add lots of good compost and stuff like that, and it can totally get used again. There's no need to toss it and start all over next year with fresh. You just have to refresh what you got. Now I'll go through and I'll pull off all of these rings from all of the plants and save these again for next year. These worked so well. Oh my goodness. This is the first year I had used these. I usually just take twine or this, you know, like hemp string and tie it up, but those rings worked great. I am so glad I got them. And, you know, you can use them over and over again as long as they hold up. The grow bags that I used this year did work very well. I would say get bigger ones than you think you need. These were 2-gallon bags, but they really don't seem like they're 2 gallons. I mean, they really feel like they're more of a 1-gallon bag. Even the 5 gallons, I have a couple of those. They don't really seem like the size of a 5-gallon bucket, if you know what I mean. Look at this one here. See what I mean about the suckers creating all new plants? Look at that. That's a sucker that I just never pruned off. And look, it was still, they were still giving blossoms. But these ones out here, I'm just cleaning this up. I do have some tomatoes over there in the beds that are still producing, so I'll clean up all around them. But I'll leave those plants, the producing parts, in the beds until we get our first frost and finish them up for good. So these, you know, all of these grow bags, I'll just put them in a tub of soapy water, wash them up, let them dry, fold them up, and put them aside for next year. Now these smaller, like 2-gallon ones, I think I would just use these for like a pepper plant. 2 might even be pushing it. But I don't know that I would use the 2 gallons for tomatoes again. I would go a little bit bigger for tomato plants. So, but they did work well. I just had to use these little plastic trays to hold some water at the bottom to allow the bags to just fully absorb all of the water so that they wouldn't dry out so quickly. But again, all of this stuff can get used again. I'll just wash it all up, put it away in the greenhouse for next year. Alright friends, so I am in the house now. I've gotten all cleaned up, washed up, and it's just about time to make dinner. I do have to run out and do something outside real quick though. Sophie had our donkey had an abscess in her foot, and so she's got a compress thing that's been on her foot. I gotta go change that. But I'm getting ready to make dinner, and I'm making this really just an amazing fall time recipe. And I don't think I've ever done a video on it, but it has been on my website for years. And it's just kind of like a skillet hash sort of thing with sweet potato, ground beef, onion, fall spices, and diced apple, and some spinach. But I need to go ahead and get my spinach thawing out. So I'm just going to put about 3/4 of a cup or so in my sieve right here and let that thaw while I go do Sophie's foot. And then when I come back in, I'm going to get started making dinner. All right, friends, so I had to actually change cameras. Somehow, every single battery that I own for my primary camera is dead. And so I'm using one of my backup cameras that I don't usually use very often. I don't know what the audio is like with it. And I'm also using a brand new microphone because my other microphone is dead also. It's just... all will be well. So, I'm getting dinner started, and I'm going to start off by cooking up some ground beef. And actually, let me throw on an apron before things get even even worse around here. Oh, because I can just see I'd spill something all over myself. The microphone. Okay. Throw on the apron. So, I'm going to start with some ground beef, and we're going to get that going. Now, the original recipe, as it's published on my website, uses 1 pound of ground beef, but I'm going to go ahead and use 2. We tend to, nowadays, use a little more protein in our dishes, in our meals. So, of course, you could just use 1 if that's what you prefer. If you want to go with the original, that is just fine. But I'm just opening up these 2 packages of ground beef. I'm going to get those started. And then along with the ground beef, I'm going to need some diced onion, and I usually make this with red onion, but I'm out of red onion, but I got lots of classic yellow onion. And it's already diced and ready to go here in my freezer. So we would need about 1 onion to go along with this. That looks about like an onion.
Yeah, big watermelon.
Alright, so I have my skillet turned down real low because I want this sweet potato to pretty much cook with the meat and onion. So I'm going to go ahead and dice this up real quick. And you want to cut this up pretty small because you want it to cook through well with the meat. So I'm cutting this into about 1/3 of an inch size pieces. All right, so we got that all diced up, and so now I'm going to put it in my skillet with the ground beef and the onion. I'm going to let these cook together. breaking up the meat a little bit. Alright, so I went ahead and I mixed together my ground beef, the sweet potato, the onion, all that. Just kind of breaking apart the ground beef a little bit as it cooks. And so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in my seasonings. We're going to need about a half a teaspoon. We're going to need about a half a teaspoon of salt. About a half a teaspoon of black pepper. And it's pretty easy to remember the measurements for these seasonings because they're all half a teaspoon. We've got a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Half a teaspoon of oregano. Got a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, which is right about all I've got in there. I need to refill my jar. Half a teaspoon of chili powder. And a half teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Okay. After I get all of these seasonings mixed in, I'm going to throw a lid on for just a couple of minutes to help hold in the steam to let the sweet potatoes cook through a little bit better. And then I'll take the lid off and let it continue to cook so that the meat can brown up and all of that. So this is ready to go. It is cooked through. The sweet potatoes done, the meat is done, everything is ready to go. So now we've just got to add in two more things. You saw just a minute ago I was dicing up some Granny Smith apple. And over here I've got some spinach. I'm just going to squeeze all the liquid out of that. This started off as about 3/4 of a cup of frozen spinach, but of course after you squeeze all the liquid out of there, it ends up looking a lot smaller. But we're just going to get all of the water out. Now I'm just going to break that up into the pan here. Just kind of break it up a bit. Alright, and then we're going to add in the apple. And the recipe on my website just calls for 1 apple, but these were kind of small, so I went ahead and I did 2 of them. Now, the apple gives it a nice crunch and, you know, some sweetness. Now, if you want the apple to be soft and cooked all the way through, you would add it sooner. But I like the crunch that you get from the apple in this dish, along with the, you know, the soft sweet potato, the ground beef and the onion and all of that in there. But that is it, y'all. So I'm just going to let the apples get heated up, warmed through, and that is it. Super simple. As you saw, lots of great flavors, but this is just a fantastic dish to enjoy and super healthy. All sorts of good things in here. It is considered paleo friendly. It's one of the recipes that I started making back when I was doing paleo strictly, you know, several years ago. But there you go. Alright, so there you go, friends. Like I said, a great autumn dish. Just wonderful flavors: apple, spice, sweet potato, ground beef, onion, and all those warm seasonings. So if you would like to get this recipe, you can get it on my website, cosmopolitancornbread.com, where there's over 800 recipes, and I will put a link to this one in the video description down below. So thanks for joining me here again at the homestead. God bless, and I'll talk to y'all next time.